Welcome to Psychic Holistic Spotlight. I'm your host, Josie Way, and with me tonight is Kathy Medeiros, and our lovely guest is Gladys Ellen. Now, Gladys Ellen has a long list of things she does. She's an angel intuitive, which means she talks to angels, ascended masters, loved ones from our past that have passed on, and she now does past life regressions. So that's quite a lot to do, and quite a lot of help, and she considers herself a spiritual advisor because those from the other side of life are very good guides for us, help us on our path, and let us know when we're slipping off into a detour. Because we have free will, and they let us know when our free will is going in the right direction. Yay! So I'm very pleased to introduce you to Gladys Ellen. Now, you have a lot of new things going on. Could you tell the audience, please, first, how you started with all this, and then let's talk about your podcast, your YouTube, all of the things that are going on.
Okay, wonderful. So I have to say, I wasn't someone who always knew that I could connect. I struggled with God for a long time. I lost my grandmother at a very young age, and it wasn't something that was talked about in depth. I didn't know about mediumship and connecting with loved ones that have passed. So all throughout my childhood, as a teenager, I got through high school with what I know now is childhood depression. It kind of started me off on this downward spiral, and without taking the positive into a bad place, but I think it's important for people to know, when I was 19, I was just in a dark place. I'd pushed anything God out of my life, and I was just kind of lonely and ashamed and separate, and so I wrote a letter to my mom saying goodbye, and I took a bunch of pills, and I just wanted the emotional pain to stop. I know now I'm very sensitive. I know now that God was always with me, and I was saved. And I woke up from that experience thinking there had to be more to life than this. There had to be a reason why I was still here. So that started the journey. A friend of mine introduced me to the angels, and I read a lot of Doreen Virtue books, and I started asking the angels for assistance, and I just started listening, and God sent me the Archangel Michael to show me the way out of fear and out of worry, and he guided me to this place that I believe I am now. So when I started this work, it was only to discover myself, to discover what this unconditional love vibration was. And I think, I was still angry at God for taking my grandmother, and I feel like he sent the angels because he knew that I would listen to them. And I believe the angels are God's messengers. I believe he sends them to give people inspiration and to help people through the darkness. And I have to say that darkness doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I do this work and I share my story in hopes that, if somebody hears me, they don't have to go to that really dark place, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that if I can make it through it, anybody can. So I consider what I do now a calling. I feel like I'm human, and I live a very human life, and I go out with my friends and I do fun things, and then God calls me to work, and I show up, and I do my work and I listen to, what the next steps are. I have to say I fought it for a long time. It wasn't something that I embraced openly. And all
it's
throughout.
a lot of responsibility.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of belief systems out there. There's a lot of different kinds of energies. And so I really had to isolate for a long time to figure out what the angels meant to me, what God's role was, where Jesus fit in, and the Mother Mary and the saints. And, I can't say that I know everything there is to know, but I do have to say I come from a place of love and wanting to support people, and I find that the people who find me are in that dark place, and I meet them there, and I take their hand and I cry with them and I hug them and I love them and I let them know they're not alone, and then God takes care of the rest. They leave and then He sets them on their path, so I feel like that has been my mission now, and through that I was it's hard for me to put myself out there. So this is hard for me, I like to be in my little bubble, my corner of the world, behind the scenes. And coming into this year, I started the podcast with the Archangels. I was asked to be part of a YouTube channel. I'm here, and I laugh that if I knew that the first quarter of 2017 was going to be the media and in magazines and on YouTube and putting my love out there, I probably would have ran for the hills. So, but now here I am, and like I said, I listen. God, I believe I'm ready. So
that is like probably the most important thing, to listen and then follow through on what you've been told.
The trust is big too.
Yeah.
Trusting that
and I have
it
to
will
say,
work well.
I fought it for a long time. I didn't want to be put out there. I wanted to learn for myself. But the best teachers out there are the ones that share their stories, the ones that have come from adversity, the ones that have, information, that people can benefit from.
Yeah.
And like I said, I just show up and just speak from the heart, and the angels, I find that they brought me back to God. They're the ones that found me in my dark place. And the angels, it's an energy. They come from that highest vibration of unconditional love. So I don't believe that they're a replacement for God.
No.
I don't believe that, they give me information that trumps God's wisdom. It's more or less they lead people through the darkness. They bring people to the light. And from there, it just takes form,
Yeah.
Now, how did you start talking to them? I know you started researching them and learning.
Yes.
But what was the next step for you? How did you do that?
So in Doreen Virtue's books, she always says, ask and you shall receive. Now I have to say, this may sound, common knowledge, but I didn't know I could ask. I didn't know that they abide by the law of free will. So in order to help us, we have to ask. So it made sense where I'm sitting here waiting for God and the angels to talk to me, and they're waiting for me to invite them in my life. And it became like this waiting game. And then I got more and more separate, and was confused. So when I read that, I was like, all right, let me start asking. And I ask for everything, always, all the time. And then I listen, and I have to say, not all the time are my prayers answered, in the way that I'd like them to. But I have to say, I don't always get what I want, but I 100% always get what I need.
Yes. Yes. That's been my experience too. And it's been my experience that a lot of people who work with the angels have had either a future a past where they knew them very early, or they went through a lot of difficulties with major losses in their early years, and felt different from other people.
Oh, I can't even tell you.
The difference, feeling
Absolutely.
different, is what alienates you so terribly. And then the angels bring you back.
Oh, totally. I mean, I had friends that were going to college that knew what they wanted to do. You know, they were in nursing school and law school and, you know, working corporate jobs, you know, working, as paralegals. And I felt like...
Stuck almost?
Yeah, like kind of like a failure. Like, how come I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, you know?
Well,
I'm so different. And
it's the sensitivity.
Absolutely.
You don't realize that's, at first you think it's a curse. You don't realize because you know what's going on with everybody, and you know that person's not in a good mood.
Yeah, there are no secrets.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hide. I'd rather just stay in my room and read books and not go out into the world.
Yeah, I was a book reader too.
And still to this day, it's hard, you know, to really put myself out there because you feel the sensitivities. I mean, you feel the energy of people around, you know, good, bad, or indifferent. It can be overwhelming, you know. So,
yes, it's draining to me.
So I've learned how to, the biggest question I get a lot is, being an empath, how do you shut it off? You know,
that's a tough one too.
And I say to them, and I say it's a gift. You know, you can't shut it off.
No.
But what you can do is you can learn how to manage through it. So you know, I've kind of adjusted where it's very rare for me to be on the highway at between 4:30 and 6:30, or even 3:30 and 6:30. You know, because there's a lot of energy then. You know, I don't go food shopping on Saturdays or Sundays. I don't go to Rentham on busy holidays. You know, I really pick and choose, like when I decide to go out, you know.
Yeah, no last minute Christmas shopping.
It's absolutely not, you know. But I have to say that I struggled with this a lot because I was so last minute. You know, I just kind of, I don't really pay attention, and like I said, I would get burnt out, you know, and then I'd have to sleep for days and couldn't understand why. So, you know, coming back to this place and learning from other empaths and listening and connecting with people, I have to say, through my business, you know, teaching classes and connecting with people, I've learned a lot. You know, my clients, you know, my students are my greatest teachers, you know, so I just kind of show up and share the information that I have, you know, and it just kind of takes its own form.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me about, which would you like to talk about first, YouTube or the pod?
Well, let's talk about the podcast because we're talking about the angels. And that came about, so Heavenly Hugs, which is my business.
Now, did you get that name from everyone coming to you needing a big hug?
Actually, the funny thing is, well, yes, now, but so angels have always been something, like I said, that's been like, you know, since that time at 19, it's been something that's been in my life. So I wanted a vanity plate, and I wanted something to do with angels, but I didn't want angel because it was so like cliche.
Right.
So I went online and I found the license plate Heavenly. And I was like, I love that. And so I got that plate, and so if you see me out there, you can beep and wave hi. So when I went to start my business in 2007, I wanted something that went along with Heavenly. And so I sat with it and I said, well, what does this feel like? What is this energy, you know? And I remember thinking, I feel like with this in my life, I feel like I'm hugged by heaven. And that's where Heavenly Hugs was born. So hugging became my thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I can't say it started there, but it's so beautiful. You know, I love it. You know, we come from a world where people can be so sterile and, you know, don't want to connect with people. So the hugging is very...
They say you need so many hugs every day. It's a physical need.
Absolutely. Well, it's that connection,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel like when clients come in and, you know, I may or may not hug, you know, but when they leave, you know, they'll get a firm handshake or they'll get a big hug, you know, depending on their comfort zone, because not everybody are huggers, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But that's where the name came from. So I started that in 2007, and it's been a journey with the angels. You know, I feel like by me sharing my story with them, people can start there. And combine it with what they know, through whatever their upbringing is or their religious beliefs, or, take that information. I never tell people what to do. I really kind of give them comfort and support. I teach and inspire. And, from there, they leave, and find their own way. And so I've channeled a lot of information about the angels, a lot of repetitive things that I believe can help people invite this energy and see and feel it in their own lives. So, when I went to, so almost 10 years ahead, I get a lot of questions about the angels, and I've wanted to do a podcast for a long time, and I've wanted to share the information that I've talked about for a long time, and I just decided...
That's a calling lately for people to serve in a bigger platform, bigger level.
Yeah. And a friend of mine was doing a podcast. He was doing working with life coaching, and I called them up, who was doing his podcast, and I asked them, if they'd be interested in coming my way. And, every month we sit down, we record 2 shows, and once a month I pick an angel, and I talk about that angel, and then I discuss a topic. So I've worked with Archangel Ariel and embracing, courage and bravery. I've talked about the Archangel Michael and moving through fear and setting boundaries. I've talked about the Archangel Raguel and relationships. So really the possibilities are endless.
Oh yeah, you could be working podcasts for many years before you run into angels people have never heard of.
Absolutely.
Now, what do you find is the common thing about angels that people would want to know about?
I think one of the big things is that they abide by the law of free will, and that we have to invite them into our lives. We have to ask for assistance. Same thing with God and the ascended masters and the saints. I think that's one thing that, I find that people sit and wait, or they're like, where were you, and, we also have to remember that we've got to be listening too. We've got to be listening with, and paying attention. There's so many times I'm driving and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't remember passing that. I kind of get caught up in my head. So the angels are right here. Their messages and their signs are in the present moment. So if we're so far in the past and so far in the future, we're missing those signs all around.
The right now for that,
yeah. So these podcasts help people to know what to look for. And again, that's not by any means the only thing, because then they're going to be encouraged to develop their own relationship.
Now, is like the signs another common thing that people tend to miss and they ask about?
Absolutely. So the angels come in with color, profound sounds. So,
music sounds.
Yep, music. The Archangel Michael presents himself to me as law enforcement, fire trucks, ambulances, cop cars. And so you think about the emergency responders, they don't know there's an emergency unless somebody picks up the phone and calls. Yeah, right. So, Michael has presented himself to me to know that he's around when I hear sirens. And he's validated, through and through. One story, when I just moved into my new office, I have a statue of the Archangel Michael, and I wanted that to be the first thing that was put up before the furniture was put together, before anything. And my boyfriend and I were doing it together, and we put the shelf up. It was a corner shelf, and it was still a little wiggly in the back, and I was saying, it's fine, And, my boyfriend was like, no, it has to be right, it has to be perfect so it doesn't fall over. So I go back up, I take the statue down, I come down off the ladder, he goes up and puts some, nails in the back of the shelf, and I climbed the ladder to go put it back up, and I kind of shook it a little bit, and it was solid. And at that moment, a fire truck went by, and I just laughed. I said, "Okay, Michael." I'm like, "You're happy now," So it's that. Those are the things that I like to share, and how it worked for me.
Yeah, it's some of the simple things. I know what I find is angels start off helping you to take care of yourself.
Oh, yes.
And love yourself. And then they expand and to you're doing stuff around you with your immediate family and friends. And now for people that are well balanced in that, they're encouraging them to serve others just like they serve.
Absolutely. And I have to say, that was one of the hardest things, was to work on myself. You know, I had a lot of challenges, a lot of struggles, a lot of beautiful people that came into my life to help me. And you're so right. And I think, you know, I've evolved a lot as a person. I know I've spiritually grown a lot. And I think that's maybe where this YouTube channel has come from, and this podcast. And now, you know, I'm in this place of being in balance, you know, I mean, that changes daily, but I'm in a solid place now, and I have stability in my life where I feel like, you're right, you know, I'm taking care of myself, I've learned that, and I can now move forward from there and help others on a bigger level.
So you're covering different angels and different subjects every week there. So where do we see this?
Well, you can go on iTunes, you know, if you just search Heavenly Hugs. You can also visit my website at GladysEllen, ELLEN.com, and the links are right there as well. If you don't have iTunes, you can, you know, connect with the RSS feed.
What's an RSS feed?
It's a website.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and so all the podcasts are on the website.
I'm a little techno-challenged.
Yes, I didn't know either, so I'm still learning too. So it's a website where everything is there, so you don't have to download iTunes and you know, get all that fancy stuff.
Yeah, and you also got Consider the Source.
Yes, yes. That's a YouTube channel that I collaborate with. So I am a speaker at the First Spiritualist Church of Rhode Island, and Nathan and Joe Higgins, who are also members, and Joe speaks at the church, we've kind of collaborated, and, you know, we really wanted to talk more about God. You know, I feel like that's a subject that, you know, sometimes can be taboo, can be difficult for people to connect with, but I think that is the primary source of everything. So we come from different backgrounds, we come from different places and different belief systems, but yet we share this common faith, you know, in all that is. And so we just sat down one day and just started talking and saying, hey, you know, sharing our mutual, you know, connections, and, you know, we thought, you know, this would be a really good place to start. So, you know, when you go to our YouTube channel called, you know, Consider the Source, when you go there, you know, you're just joining our conversation. So we're not preaching, we're not teaching, we're just sharing information on subjects that we're guided to talk about, and we go deeper, you know, and we challenge people to consider the source, you know, always consider where the source is coming from, you know, and then also to consider God, you know, invite him into, you know, your life, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, the difference that I see coming from the folks, you folks that are doing in this, is you all come from a perspective of believing that God is a loving God, not a judgmental God.
That's true. That's true.
So it's there are some backgrounds that don't believe that.
And that's perfectly okay. You know, I believe that, you know, everybody starts somewhere and everybody grows. You know, maybe I'm in my infancy, you know, maybe not, you know, but I also have respect for where everybody comes from. And from what I've learned, I have the most beautiful, loving God. Now, that doesn't mean that bad things don't happen to me and I don't have challenges and struggles and difficulty, but I found that it's through that adversity or darkness, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but those are where my treasures are. It's kind of forced me to grow.
Some of them are gifts. Some of them are gifts. As a friend of mine put them, in not very pretty gift wrap.
Absolutely.
But they are real gifts. When you get told no, you can't do something, and you go ahead and learn how to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Wow, that's the gift of self-independence, let's say.
Yeah.
You know, if, I mean, I have one thing that's written that a friend gave me that talks about people that abandon you teach you independence. Now,
So
that's
true.
a horrible lesson and yet it's such a valuable, wonderful gift once you've realized it.
I've been there. It's something I struggled
we
with.
all have a little of
Absolutely.
that in somewhere.
Well, we always like the easy lessons. We don't like the hard ones.
I have to say, just up until a few months ago, I was angry at God. Something didn't go my way, and I put a lot of energy into it. I wanted it so bad, but I have to say, it worked out even better.
It
And I kind of
always
laughed.
does.
And I find that I go to God when I'm angry. I go to God when I'm confused, when I'm upset. And he listens. Somebody said that to me. She's like, your relationship with God is profound. The way you talk and connect and the way you embrace him, he's really a friend,
That's what I was going to say. It's like talking to your best friend.
Yeah, yep. And he lets me vent, and he still smiles on me and says, I still love you anyway. And then I understand, and I get the lesson, and I'm like, I get it now, and now I can teach people and share. And
Yeah, I'm impatient. I say, listen, I know this is something that's going to be good for me. Could you please tell me what the lesson is now?
It's true.
So I don't have to go through the whole thing.
It's true. Like I said, if had I known I was going to be in such a spotlight the first quarter of this year, I probably would have ran from the hills. So I'm grateful that he didn't tell me, and I'm grateful that I'm just moving along and,
Yeah, so when he doesn't want you to know right away, he doesn't tell you. So, once you learn what that is, it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. So it's different.
And I have to say, it's strengthened my faith. I have to say I have a very strong faith, but I also have to, sometimes I throw all caution to the wind, and I'm like, this is all baloney, and I have my moment. It doesn't last as long now. It might last an hour, not
God
days.
has a sense of humor about that.
Absolutely.
He understands.
Yeah.
He knows.
Thank God.
But you know what? I think it makes you more human. I think it makes you more real. I don't believe that I know everything. I believe I'm just in my infancy. I'm just beginning to understand this journey, And so I'm guided to books and people and places and things and ideas that I think challenge me, And from there, I grow, and I'm able to help other people who are in that place.
It wasn't until I was older than you that I first learned what I needed to know to live life well. And that was through 12-step programs.
Oh,
I learned
yes.
that I couldn't control anyone else except me. And once I learned that I could be happy if I wanted to be happy, even if things were going rotten around me, my life turned around completely.
Yeah, we choose how we react
And
to
I was
anything.
older than you were, so I was walking around confused a long time.
Well, because I was so young when I started this. I work with young people now. I go into, I work with a group at Bryant College, and I'll go in there and I'll talk to them about, their loved ones that have passed, and I'll talk to them about angels and guides and spiritual stuff. And I wish I had this at that age. And I feel like by me going in there and offering my service and being able to share what I know, that maybe their life will be easier. Maybe that they'll understand and explore it earlier, before years go by and they're really lost.
And maybe they'll even teach some of their children some of this before they're adults.
Yeah.
What's the youngest that you've had to guide someone?
13. I think I've worked with children, not to sit down with them, but for the most part, 13 is the age that I started. Yeah.
We're coming to near the end of the show, and I wanted to say thank you so very much to the audience for being with us, to Kathy Medeiros for being with us, and for Gladys Ellen for being with us. Now, if there's just one thing that we could close the show with that you feel people need to know about the angels, that would help them to be more comfortable with them and reach out to them, is there just one thing you could tell them?
It all comes from love. Not judgmental, the highest vibration of unconditional love that you can imagine. And all you have to do is open your arms to receive.
That sounds beautiful. Because as much as we say we miss relationships, it's the giving that we miss. And a lot of us don't learn how to receive. So that's
true.
very important.
Absolutely. Ask and you shall receive.
Yes.
Yeah, balance is a big thing, though. So it's hard to get the other half of it together.
It's true.
Yeah. Yeah. And, well, love is all about balance and stability
It is.
in the long run. Thank you very much. Good night. Please join us again.